Hi everyone, this is the Ask Annie podcast, horse girl reviews on products you use.
Hi everyone, thanks to Benefab for providing us with these two products to test this week. I was really excited when I found out we were going to get to test these products because I don't know much about ceramic or magnetic therapy, and I've always been curious on the science behind it and the results. This episode could get a bit technical, but we are lucky enough to have Kat Chrysostom, founder and owner of Benefab, here to explain the logistics of her products to us.
First off, thank you for being on the Ask Annie podcast. We're really excited to have you and hear from you firsthand about the Benefab story. So as we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your horse background and life prior to Benefab?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be talking with you too. So life before Benefab and my riding background. So I grew up on a big farm, and it wasn't a working farm, but we had just about every animal there was, including multiple horses. And I kind of grew up just doing the typical backyard riding. We double ride bareback and all the dangerous, silly things. We had a pond. I loved to swim the horses, and I really just fell in love with horses at a very young age, and actually started formally taking riding lessons at the age of 4. And I've been taking lessons ever since, but I guess stumbled sort of into my junior riding career and ended out horse showing. And actually had quite a successful junior riding career and was offered an academic and athletic scholarship to a private college in Virginia, where I then went on and horse showed with the IHSA and, kept doing the rated horse shows.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And then how did you start Benefab? What was the background and the reason behind that?
Yeah. So like I said, I went to school. I was always, academic and really wanted to pursue. So I said I grew up on a farm, but I was really in a family full of medical professionals. Mm-hmm. And I really had a heart for medicine. I wanted to help other people. I'd done a lot of internships and was actually studying pre-med in school, was in my 3rd year of college and had decided that I wanted to be, out of all things, a neonatologist, which is basically taking care of preemie babies in the NICU. I just really had my heart set on that and had a very successful internship in a NICU the summer prior, and took spring break, went down to Florida, and kind of this whole story started on that spring break vacation in March of 2011. So I was riding back to the barn on a horse that I was just catch riding for someone, and he tripped, and we ended up both falling over each other, which resulted in me being paralyzed with a triple fracture of my C2 vertebrae. Wow. And the horse not making it.
Oh, wow.
It was a terrible accident and just really changed the trajectory of my life in that split moment. And so obviously, knowing my background and that I was studying pre-med and having my family as a support system in the medical field, I, was exploring all sorts of things to regain my mobility, and my pain was horrendous, and was put into something called a halo traction device, which I don't know if you're that familiar with that or the listeners, but it's a sort of this metal contraption that somewhat resembles a medieval torture device. But it has 4 rods and a halo, metal-shaped halo that goes around your head. And the 4 rods each one of them has a screw that goes onto your skull, and it's 32 pounds of pressure total. But that stayed on for just over 3 months. And so the migraines were horrible, and I wasn't regaining mobility, and it was just really like a fight for survival. And so I was being just prescribed so many different medications and doing all these different things to regain my mobility, and to start living a somewhat normal life. I had lost my academic scholarship. Of course, I was told I would never ride again, so athletics were off the table. and told I may not walk again. And so it was just a really long recovery. And in that recovery, I never explored Eastern medicine. And to be totally candid, I just thought it was hocus pocus. Like that's the family I grew up in. That's what I believed. And actually my neurosurgeon had recommended far infrared light therapy in a very offhand way. And he didn't tell me much about it. But I wanted to know everything about it because I had exhausted all other measures.
Sure.
And it's commonly known as red light therapy. That's what most people know it as. But I very quickly found a place that offered a red light solarium. And when I sat in front of it for the first time since the day of the accident, I was able to walk out. It wasn't pretty, but I had my mobility and I was able to walk out. And for me, my spinal cord obviously wasn't severed. It was just severely inflamed and bruised. So once we were able to control that and I realized what that red light had done, it was reducing the inflammation in my spinal cord. I knew what I had to do. So I ended up purchasing a light of my own, and dove into research. And that is how I developed the Benefab products. So that's really what they do. They are a wearable version of red light therapy. So they mimic that same therapy, but in a much easier to use form that everybody can use.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so interesting, especially coming from a medical background. That you turned to Eastern medicine. So how did you learn so much about holistic, magnetic, and ceramic therapy so quickly?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of that was my own research. To be honest, the ceramic infusion, so that is mimicking it's actually emitting far infrared wavelengths, which is the same. Yeah, so it's the same wavelength that you are getting in red light therapy. The difference is that the red light has the light attached, so you actually have the heating element versus with a fabric you don't have that intense heating element. So that was a lot of research, and then obviously I had my personal testimony. And so I knew it worked. But I learned a lot about that. I actually teamed up with a team of engineers and designers in Taiwan that were perfecting a fabric. And I truly, when I first read about it and began talking with them, I just could not believe that a fabric could do what they were saying it could do.
Right.
So I flew there. I spent a lot of time in Taiwan to begin with, and really was kind of involved in the finalization of the fabrics. And so that was really fascinating. I got to learn a lot about the science behind it, got to be part of the initial trials and testing. And this is a proprietary blend that we use. So it is, I can't speak to what other people use, but for ours, we know, it's proven, it's tested. Obviously it worked for me in the beginning. And it was sort of an organic growth with that, because I just started lending it to friends and family and, friends of them. And it just kind of was this organic growth. But to speak to the magnetic therapy, actually, that still goes back to my original story. So I was using the far infrared light therapy. I'd purchased a light of my own, like I said earlier, but in the midst of it, so in my accident, I was actually, the break was caused by whiplash.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in most of the time, C2 fractures are also known as hangman's fracture. And most of the time it's caused front to back whiplash, but for me, it was side to side. And the whiplash was so intense, if you can imagine this, to the right-hand side, that my left trapezius muscle was completely severed.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So underneath the halo, which is a carbon fiber vest with like sheepskin lining,
Oh, okay.
that's on for 3.5 months. So I had this intense pain and this huge hematoma that had formed underneath the vest, on top of my trapezius muscle, but you can't take the vest off. Like it's
Right.
screwed on. So it was terrible pain. And that's actually the only pain that I still have today. I have a slight, very occasionally in that left trapezius area, I get the shooting pain, which is why I keep my scarf handy all the time. But yeah, so I was using to treat that. I was actually using acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
And having a lot of success with it. And I started talking with some traditional Chinese medicine practitioners who were doing the acupuncture. And I just started saying, if there was a way that I could do what I did with the far infrared light therapy, like we turn this into a wearable, is there a way that we can do something like that without the needles? And what they had done is in traditional Chinese medicine, they actually pull your own blood out and re-inject it IM over acupuncture points. And the reason why they choose your own blood is because it's not a foreign substance to the body.
Right.
So it's actually slowest absorbing. And I don't know if you've seen acupuncture done, with vitamin B12.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they do that, but instead of using the B12, they actually use your own blood. And so we started exploring. I started working with a couple different practitioners, and we eventually came to the conclusion that we could do this through polarity of north-facing medical grade magnets, which are basically therapeutic magnets. Mm-hmm. So that is what the magnets do. So there's naturally occurring iron in our blood. So when you put the correct polarity against the body, you actually have the blood pulling towards the surface of that magnet.
Okay. Yeah. Increasing circulation.
Exactly. And it's pulling towards that surface. So it actually is a stimulant for targeted therapy in that area. Mm-hmm. And it has a prolonged benefit because when you take the product off, it's not going to just go away right away. It's right. The slowest absorbing thing. So that's how we developed the smart products, and they have been really, really successful. There's nothing like them on the market. And we actually own the patent to them. So that's been a fascinating journey.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's been so hands-on since the beginning, you using it and then flying over and being so hands-on with picking the materials and all of that. It's really, really inspiring. What are the benefits, that people can look for just right off the bat when they use the products on their horses?
Yeah, so obviously the benefits are proven. We've been able to prove a significant increase in blood circulation and then also a decrease in inflammation. But to just boil it down to the simplest of simple, our customer promise is increased mobility and less pain in 3 weeks guaranteed.
Wow.
So that's really what we that's the easiest way. It's like sometimes when you get into the science, people are like, okay, I'm lost. I just want to know if it's going to help. And so that's what, it's an increase in flexibility or mobility, and it's going to lessen pain.
Oh, do you find that certain disciplines use the products more than others?
That's funny. It's a great question. And yes, it's really funny. Getting into this, I didn't really know what to expect, but I thought I had an idea. I grew up in, gave you my, obviously we talked about my background, but I grew up primarily in the hunter and jumper disciplines. Mm-hmm. But I always had a foundation in dressage, and I kind of, right when I developed this for horses, I just thought, all the performance horses, the dressage, the hunters, jumpers, I wasn't even thinking about your just backyard horse lover or the trail or endurance or rodeo. For all things, like rodeo was the last thing on my list, and they are my number one customer.
Wow, that's so impressive.
I know. We love the rodeo market, and they love us back. And that has been it's actually been a really cool experience for me to learn about that industry. So yeah, we're very heavily invested in the rodeo world, whether that's barrel racing, pole bending, a lot of different disciplines within that space. And then we have also dressage riders. I found that they are very educated buyers. So they really care about the science. But, we really dabble in pretty much, there's not an industry that we don't, sell to, but I would say the majority share are probably those rodeo and dressage riders, if I boiled it down to one or two.
That's awesome. And you kind of mentioned that the backyard horse owner uses these. And I noticed that when I was testing them, that they're really easy to apply and straightforward. And like the QuickWraps, you can take them apart and they're machine washable. So like, how important is it to you to make these accessible to the average horse owner?
I think it's the most important thing in our design. In our design process, we really, obviously, I am a horse owner. And by the way, I do ride.
That's so awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Defying the odds there. So yeah, I do ride. And being a horse owner, I can so appreciate it, especially being a business owner. I work all day and, go to the barn, and I'm just your average horse owner. I'm not doing this full time. I love my horse to death, but it's like when I get to the barn, I basically have 2 hours, before it starts getting dark. And so for me, it's really important to have products that are easy to use and easy to care for. And that's what we design everything in mind for. And we try not to ever cater to, the performance horse versus the backyard horse versus, whatever, a companion horse. It's really all for us. It's all about, okay, we're treating, mobility, pain, and inflammation, and how can we make it easiest for any horse and any horse owner. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of the design process. And if it doesn't fit into that model, we don't create it.
That's so awesome. And there is such a wide variety of products. I noticed kind of browsing your site and your promotional materials. So how would a listener go through the process of selecting the right product for their horse and situation?
Sure. So it really is a question of where, does your horse struggle? If it's back pain, then our Smart Scrim is going to be the best choice. And we actually, speaking of back pain, recently, last year, we actually are one of the first wearable wellness companies on the market to have peer-reviewed published studies. But we had a study that was conducted at North Dakota State University that proved a significant reduction in back pain in chronically back-sore horses over a 6-week period in moderate to high exercise horses. So that's really neat. But it depends, if you have back pain, then you go with the Smart Scrim. If your horse struggles with stocking up, then obviously you're going to look at our leg wraps, which we have a couple different options there. If it's head shaking, head tilting, we have something for that. That's our pole pad, so it's really, for the most part, what it's targeting is, the product, where the product sits is what it's targeting. So it's really just a question for the horse owner, where does your horse struggle most?
Yeah, that's so awesome. Can you give us any insight on new products that you might be coming out with soon?
So we, as far as the equine products go, so we just actually launched into the canine market. So we have a lot of newness happening there. And so now we have literally a product for every member of the family, including the dogs. But as far as insight into the equine, market, I really think coming down right now, we have something kind of a product for everything. The saddle pads are a very competitive market. And it's not really one, the saddle pads we're actually sold out on, a few of our styles right now. And I think we're going to continue selling them until we're completely sold out. And we probably will not reintroduce the saddle pads just because I feel like, all of the other products are can be used independently, not necessarily just when you're riding.
Sure.
So you end up getting a little bit more bang for your buck there just because the horse is wearing them longer. Right. So I think that if I want to give you any insight going forward, it would probably be stifles. That is a huge thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So I think that is probably coming down the pike in the next year, probably sooner. But yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting. And yeah, just it seems like you see where there's a need and you try and fill it and help horse owners out. So that's really awesome. And where can listeners go to find your products?
Yeah, so Annie, they can go to benefabproducts.com, and that's Benefab like beneficial fabric. So BENEFAB products.com. And I will say if they do end out purchasing something or see a product that would fit, if they use free ship at the checkout, it will waive the shipping fees, which just saves a couple bucks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that with our listeners. That's a great deal.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it was great to hear your story and to hear more about these products. And I'm excited to share my review on them and share that all with our listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We can't wait to hear your review.
Benefab provided us with 2 products to test, the Therapeutic Smart QuickWrap and the Therapeutic Pole Pad. Many of you may remember Angel, Lauren's paint mare from episode 3 and 4, and Lauren is always gracious enough to let me borrow Angel when I have multiple products to test. I brought both Maddie and Angel in and decided to review the Therapeutic QuickWraps on Maddie and the Therapeutic Pole Pad on Angel. Angel has been a bit fussy with her head lately, especially under saddle, so I thought she'd be a perfect candidate to try the Therapeutic Pole Pad. This pad is extremely simple to apply and features 4 straps of Velcro that loop around your halter or bridle. I secured the straps to her halter and then proceeded to brush both horses, giving the pad time to work its magic. As I was brushing Maddie, I decided she'd be great to test a Therapeutic QuickWraps on. Maddie is going to be 19 this year, and I like to make her as comfortable as possible. Even though she still thinks she's 6, I still want to give her the finer things in life. She also has a history of getting stocked up if she's immobile for periods of time, so I thought the wraps would be perfect to increase the circulation in her lower legs. The QuickWraps have 3 straps of thick elastic bands to securely hold the wraps in place. These straps really hug the leg, which I appreciate because it's always a fear of mine to have the wraps come undone, especially partially. The 2 upper straps fold across the cannon bone and the lower strap cups underneath the fetlock. The dense padding underneath folds seamlessly around the leg for a comfortable yet sturdy fit. Maddie is about 16 hands and usually medium to large in front boots. I used the front full horse-size wrap and they fit her leg well and didn't interfere with her knee or touch the ground. According to the Benefab website, these leg wraps contain 11 individual magnets that are all strategically placed to target tendons, ligaments, and joints in the legs. These wraps can be left on for up to 12 hours, so I let Maddie be and turned my attention back to Angel. I led her into the arena and started to lunge her, with the pad still in place on her pole. She's not the most forward horse, but today seemed to feel fairly fresh and happily jogged in a 20-meter circle around me. A few minutes into our exercise, Angel started to lower her head, prick her ears, and lick her lips intermittently. She seemed very content and forward, and the Therapeutic Pole Pad stayed in place for the entire lunging period. It was refreshing to see her positive attitude towards her short workout. I turned Angel back out and then proceeded to take the Therapeutic QuickWraps off of Maddie. The wraps had stayed securely in place and Maddie's skin was a normal temperature underneath them. I then took Maddie on a short hack around our barn's cross-country field and noticed how free her movement felt. Even for it being a chilly day, Maddie felt flexible and confident in where to put her feet and in her movement. Her stride felt long and strong right from the start and she acted very content. Overall, I really liked the easy application and practicality of these 2 products. I could see how both would be very easy to implement into sports medicine efforts and in performance horses. I was also surprised to see how short of a time it took to show minor results and think it would be really interesting to see the impact of using these products over a long period of time. To find more information on Benefab, please visit benefabproducts.com. And thank you again to Kat Chrysostom for speaking to us about her brand and products.
Thanks for tuning in. Learn more about the Ask Annie podcast by following us on Facebook and Instagram at Ask Annie Podcast. Have a suggestion for a product you'd like me to use in an upcoming episode? Email me at askanniepodcast@gmail.com or leave a comment on any of our social media pages. Find even more Ask Annie episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. The Ask Annie podcast is a production of the Equine Podcast Network, an entity of Active Interest Media and the Equine Network.